guys, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to come on here today and chat a little bit about two books that I've been reading recently that I really enjoyed and want to share them with you. I've been reading a lot of things that I can't talk too much about right now because I'm reading to judge the BookTube Prize and I'm loving the reading. So lots of hush-hush reading experiences for a few weeks at least. So the books that I can talk about, I do want to talk about. So two books that have a shared theme, but they also share a theme with some recent reading that I've been doing. Like a lot of the books that I've been reading recently have something to do with death. So I ended up my March reading with reading Death Comes for the Archbishop by Willa Cather. And I just wanted to clarify, even though I don't think you care, in my March recap, I talked about Death Comes for the Archbishop by Willa Cather as though I had read the entire book in March. I didn't actually finish it until the beginning of April. I finished it before I did my recap video. So sometimes I forget that I should be specific. But yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't think you care when I read the book. So just wanted to mention that books that I've been reading recently have a lot to do with death. And it's fine because I'm a big scaredy cat, but I feel like total immersion in just like reading all the books that were on my TBR that have something to do with death, and then we can move on to the happy, happy, joy, joy books. So last night we were watching 60 Minutes and David Grann appeared. There was an interview that they were doing with David Grann, who is the author of Killers of the Flower Moon, which is another book that I am reading currently. Killer right there in the title. So David Grann has a new book out called The Wager, and I added it to my TBR as well because narrative nonfiction and this kind of immersive nonfiction, I'm so here for it. So reading this, but haven't finished it yet, so can't talk about it in this video. This video is not about that book, but I just wanted to mention it because a lot of my reading, again, has to do with death and all of that. Other books that I've been reading that have to do with death include The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, which I love this book and wanted to chat briefly with you about it. So this book is about a girl who's 14 years old when she is killed, and it's a little bit about the experience of life after her death. So there is the discussion of her life, her afterlife. And so we get a little bit of the insight into Alice Sebold's idea of heaven and the afterlife and what that looks like. But also the big focus is on how this life continues after Susie Salmon is killed. How the loss of a child weighs on the parents, how parents grieve in different ways, that even though their relationship to the child being the same doesn't mean that their grief and their grieving process and how they move on or not doesn't mean that those things will be identical because people are different. There are some things that happen in this book that are very unexpected. I really like how Alice Sebold seems to flip the traditional expectation of gender roles. Maybe cause the reader to think about how you expect people to deal with grief based on what you expect of them, or maybe what you expect of yourself, what you expect from life. I love the family dynamics in this book. There are places where it seems like it is going to draw you over the coals, because for a family that has endured so much, you keep asking yourself, like, what more can they be asked? What more can be asked of them? But I really enjoyed how the author writes about family and how sometimes, even though people may seem like they are limited, and we all are limited, but we all have contributions that we can make. And so sometimes you may be a little quick to write someone off because of who they were, but sometimes tragedy makes people step up and it forces people to become more of themselves, but using their unique contribution to strengthen the group. And so there's a big takeaway from this book, if there's any, that sometimes you just need to be more of yourself. Just be more of yourself, and offer that gift to the world, to your family, to the group. Because sometimes the thing that people need to go on is just you being everything that you can be, with them, for them, beside them, however that looks. So the processing of grief in here is a really big thing, but it's also, again, like I said, the exploration of life, what life looks like after someone is lost. So I like how the author explores how various members of the community that Susie Salmon inhabited, how they process this loss. So like her family and her friends and her school community, but also just like life in general. We even get a little bit of an exploration of the mind of the person who killed her. So there are some descriptions in here that are not very graphic, but they may be disturbing. I recommend this kind of with a caveat. Like I said, I'm a huge scaredy cat. And if I could read this, and there was a point where I decided I wasn't going to go to sleep until I finished this book, because I also knew that I couldn't go to sleep until I finished the book. If you're a big scaredy cat like me, you may want to start reading this early in the day, so you give yourself time to read the entire thing in a day if you need to, because there's that. But man, did I love this book. So there are some elements in here that are unique in their presentation. Like I said, this is a story about a 14-year-old girl, but it's not a YA novel. And so there are some things about youth and the experience of youth that are interesting and kind of refreshing to read about. A little bit about high school culture and first love and what that looks like as time moves on, and friendships and how friendships could change as time move on and as people change and develop. And man, did I love this book. So definitely wanted to present it to you, but also because this book has one of my favorite things in it. It has a list of books that are mentioned, and so I just wanted to present that book list to you because it may be something that you would want to do to see if you've read all the books that were mentioned in The Lovely Bones. So we'll start the list off by saying, have you read The Lovely Bones? If you have, then you get a point. I've read it, so now I get a point, so I start off with 1. But here are the other titles that are mentioned in the book, and some of them are novels, some of them are novellas, some of them are plays, and a few of them are even magazine titles. And so, because I like magazines as much or maybe even more than the average person, so we're going to mention all of them. So here are some books or titles that are mentioned in The Lovely Bones. Number 1 is Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. If you've read Breakfast at Tiffany's, then you get a point. So I'm starting with 1 point for The Lovely Bones, 2 for Breakfast at Tiffany's. Then here are some magazine titles. And if you've read any issue, if you've thumbed through these magazines, then you get a point. So there's 17 magazine, Glamour magazine, Vogue magazine, and these are my points that I'm keeping track of. National Geographic is mentioned. Better Homes and Gardens, Guide to Entertaining is mentioned. I haven't read the Guide to Entertaining, but I've read Better Homes and Gardens magazines, so you get a point if you've read anything from Better Homes and Gardens, their regular issue, or if you've read any of their compendium books like Guide to Entertaining or otherwise. Playboy magazine is also mentioned, but I have never read a Playboy magazine. Are there articles in Playboy magazine? In any case, I'm familiar with the cover and I'm familiar with the Playboy bunny silhouette, but I don't get a point because I've never read the magazine. So there's this thing that they do. They want to know what you've gotten the points for. So we're going to say you get a half a point if you've read the Playboy magazine. So if your scores include a half a point, everybody will know that you've read Playboy. I'm just joking. So yeah, Playboy magazine, I get no points. So I'm at Lovely Bones, Breakfast at Tiffany's, 17 Glamour, Vogue, Better Homes and Gardens. So I'm at 6 points, and National Geographic 7 points. I'm at 7. Where are you? Where are you on the list? So where are you in your numbers? Other titles that are mentioned in The Lovely Bones: To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, which I don't think I ever finished that book. I know I started it at least once, and I don't think I've finished it, so I get no points. I'm gonna read or reread it at some point. So for now, no points. I'm still at 7. Then 7. Then there's Othello, Shakespeare's Othello, which I haven't read the play. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I may have read when I was a child, but I can't remember, so no points for me. Then there is Resistance, Rebellion, and Death by Camus, which I haven't read. Fear of Flying, I'm gonna say Young. I don't remember the name of the author, but Fear of Flying I haven't read. Then there's the play Our Town by Thornton Wilder. I haven't watched the play or read the book. If you've done either, then you get a point. I get no points. Black Like Me by John Howard Griffith. If you've read that book, then you get a point. I haven't read it, so I'm still at 7. Then there's James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl, which I have read, so now I'm at 8. Then there is the Norton Anthology, which I think is an anthology of poems. I don't know. I don't know more. Like I said, should have done some research. Didn't. But if you've read the Norton Anthology, then you get a point. And then finally there's a Bell Jar, which is by Sylvia Plath, and I've read that, so I'm at 9 points. Yay. And then another bonus. So in this book, the book is set in Pennsylvania, and in this book, the Evening Bulletin newspaper is mentioned several times. And because the book is set in the 1970s in Pennsylvania, I'm assuming, I should have done some research again, the Evening Bulletin, I'm assuming, is a Pennsylvania newspaper from the 1970s. I don't know if it's a real newspaper, if it's still being published, and if it is, if you live in Pennsylvania, if you've read it, if you read it, then you get a point. But bonus points, wherever you are, if you read the newspaper frequently, or if you buy the newspaper frequently, you get a point, because the newspaper industry definitely needs our intentional action. For it to survive, for it to continue. And so I think that if you support the newspaper industry, then you should get a point regardless. So any newspaper that you contribute to regularly, whether it's buy it or read it, then you get a point. So yeah, those are the books that are mentioned I want to chat about from the Lovely Bones. So highly recommend this book if you're not a scaredy cat, but also if you are and you want to read it, then read it, and let's chat in the comments. So the other book that I've been reading recently that also talks about death is Memento Mori by Muriel Spark, which love this cover. Thank you again, Rosalie. I'm buddy reading this with Columbus and Rosalie, and we're loving it. They are, I think, about to finish. It's a reread for both of them. For me, this is my first time actually reading the whole thing. I started listening to the audio a couple of years ago, and I just remembered that I kept getting a little confused because of all the character names, because I don't listen to a lot of audio presentations, maybe that's why, but there are a lot of characters mentioned in this book, and I think for that reason especially, you may want to consume this as written media. But I love this book. Muriel Spark is brilliant. So there are a few things that I like about this book. Again, it is about older characters. You know, I love reading books about older characters. And this one has characters in their late 70s, 80s, and it's a little bit of a mess in the complexity of the relationships between all these characters, and there are lots of characters. And we're introduced to some of them, and then they die, and then it's a little bit about the backlash or the mess that their death has created in the lives of other people. So like someone who used to work for someone, after that person passes away, then the companion slash maid slash assistant slash household helper, whatever you call that person, now has to find a new job, a new responsibility at an advanced age in that person's life. They have to adjust to new circumstances, but also the person that they're working with is also older. And so there's a lot of that. But we also have these characters who are just really interesting in themselves, like what they do now. So one of the characters studies aged people, and you might say that he's an aged person himself. But the copious notes that he makes of these people and what they do, their daily habits, as frequently as he can get information about them, and what he's doing with his notes. It's just fascinating to study people, and to maybe make comparisons about who people are now compared to who they were before, and how maybe the choices that they made as younger people lead into their lives as older individuals. That's fascinating. But throughout the book is just this remembrance about mortality, right? So the book starts with one of the characters being reminded over and over, remember, you must die, memento mori. And it is the thing that the author asks us to focus on. But that in itself may just be a little bit of a red herring, because she's also asking us to focus on life. She's asking us to focus on how people get to where they are in life, and what some of the compromises, some of the some of the things that they did that they may or may not be proud of. The relationships are complex, they are fun, they are funny. There are some things in here that are outstandingly unexpected. The book I think is without genre, because if you love literary fiction, there are some things in here that you can focus on and call literary fiction. But if you love books that are kind of titillating, a little bit erotic, there's that too. Even though the characters are so much older. There are some interesting dynamics between families, and how messy family dynamics could be. But I'm here for all of it. Did I mention all of it? And I love this cover. So yeah, Memento Mori, Remember You Must Die, is the title of this book. And how brilliant is this book? So yeah, lots of books about life and the absence of it. Just need to finish all of these books so we can move back to the joy of living, the joie de vivre, the joy of living, the joy of reading books about life. So that's what's been happening over here in the bookish world, bookish life recently. Have lots of things that have been happening recently that I want to share with you. We have to come back and chat about those in another video, because this one is almost 18 minutes long. So didn't intend for this to go on for so long, but thank you so much for watching it, and we'll come back for another video. Until then, happy reading. Let's chat in the comments about your score on the book list, and if you've read any of these titles and want to chat more about these books, would love to do that as well. So until then, happy reading. Bye.